Hi, everyone. We're going to continue talking about how to evaluate sources, and we're going to focus in on biases. So, I want to start off by saying a bias is not a good thing and it's not a bad thing. It's not, it just exists. Everyone has a bias. So, please do not go, oh, a source is biased. That means it's bad. No, 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 no. It just means that it exists. A bias is merely how a source is presented and often reflects what is included and what is not included in the source. So, how do we determine bias? Well, we do so two ways. First off, we need to think about what is the purpose of the source. So, why was the source created and what does the author hope to achieve? So, if we're looking at a piece of propaganda, well, the author is trying to convince someone to do something. Versus if we're looking at a diary entry, well, the author's kind of recording their own thoughts and everything's going to be skewed towards their perspective versus no one else's perspective. We also have to think about, when we look at bias, what is the author's background and how does it influence the source? So, what is the author's perspective? So, for example, I am a college professor. I have a very, very different perspective than you guys do. We have very different backgrounds. And so, how I view the world is very different from how you view the world. And that's all a bias is, it is our viewpoints. So I want to give you a really good example of this. And this is the Declaration of Independence. It's biased. So the Declaration of Independence is founding source in American history. And it's when the US says, hey, we are free from Great Britain. And it's written by this guy, Thomas Jefferson. And it's full of Thomas Jefferson's biases. First off, it is a Enlightenment document, which you'll understand a bit more when we talk about the Enlightenment. So, an Enlightenment document means that Thomas Jefferson believes in a couple things. First off, he believes that men are rational beings. So, when you read the Declaration of Independence, it is a rational argument. Second off, he believes in what's called the social contract, meaning that politics should be okay, the government gives me something and I obey the government. And if the government doesn't provide what it's supposed to, I have the right to rebel. That's an Enlightenment thought. Now, not everyone believes that, but Jefferson does. That is his bias that's going into it. Jefferson believes that there should be some sort of value for everybody: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He believes these are inalienable rights that every person should have: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So his values go into the Declaration of Independence. And when the Declaration of Independence is brought before the Continental Congress, people are like, wait, what? Because not everyone agrees with him. Moreover, when the Declaration of Independence is brought before the rest of the country, people are like, huh? They actually don't understand it because most of the country doesn't have the same educational background that Jefferson does. They're going, oh, we're free from Britain? Okay, cool. That's kind of all they get from it. They don't have the educational background to go, oh, this is an Enlightenment philosophy based upon the idea. They don't have that. So it's how his background shapes it and the biases that go into it. And this will make sense later. But I want to give you a very basic example. But let's look a bit more concrete example, an everyday example, specifically at websites. Every website is biased, and we can usually tell a bias pretty quickly based on the URL. So, for example, if a website ends in .com, that means it is commercial. So, the purpose is to make money. The website really wants you to click on it because when you click on it, it makes money, which means it's more likely to sensationalize material, meaning it's probably not going to portray it accurately. So it's going to skew the narrative in some way. So it might say emphasize one part of the narrative versus something else, because the goal is to get you to click on the website, make money. If it is a .edu website, the purpose is educational, um, to educate. Now, the bias is the values of the school along with the education levels of the people who work at the school. So here at Dalton State, most of the faculty have a PhD. So we know our stuff. Other schools don't hire people with PhDs. Other colleges don't hire people with PhDs, which means that they may not know their material as well. So when you look at the material, it may be inaccurate. So you actually have to kind of look into the school itself. You also have to look into the values of the school. So at Dalton, we have a driving mission. We have our 2050 plan, and that tells you exactly what we believe. And that's going to tell you what our bias is, what our values are. A .org, an organization. This used to mean that it was a nonprofit, and it doesn't anymore. The law changed about 10 years ago. Anyone can have a .org. So you actually need to look at the organization and figure out what its values are. So you have to look at the about section because it's going to promote a specific cause. Most of the time, when you see a .org, there is going to be politics involved, and you're going to see that there is some sort of political bias with a .org. So you have to really think about what is the value of a .org. So this is a really quick overview of bias. We're going to keep playing with this entire semester. But the big takeaway is bias is not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Big thing, emphasis, it is not a bad thing. It is just the person's perspective. It is how their background influences the source, and it also reflects the purpose of the source, why the source is created. And we'll keep practicing this entire semester.